Hey kids, it's me, Spooky Lukey, and today at the FunHaus, I want to talk about pinball games. Pinball. It used to be really crazy back in the 70s. Everybody was playing pinball. It was almost the big thing before even arcade games came about. But I want to talk a little bit about the history here. Where did it start? Trying to draw back pinball is crazy. It goes back to bocce ball and games like billiards. And then in France, they started turning billiard tables into these weird slim things that had pins that they could knock down with balls. And before you knew it, pinball was starting to become a thing. But I'm not going into the 1700s here. I want to talk about the 50s, the 60s, when they started to come out with these pinball relay machines that could score, and they had these mechanical cogs and things that I couldn't even understand. But the first pinball machine to use a microprocessor was Flicker. It was a prototype made by Bally in 1974. And then the first solid-state pinball game was by Micro Games called The Spirit of 76, made in 1976. Now, these solid-state games started to take over, and companies like Williams and Bally were the top of the chain. And all through the 70s, they were all over the place. It was huge. Now, this new technology led to a huge boom for Williams and Bally. They attracted more players that had more complex games, more different rules, sound effects, things bashing and bopping all over the place, and soon there was a pinball machine for everything. And some of those players were pretty freaking crazy. I don't know if you've ever seen a pinball player as they work, but they do these insane jerky dance movements as if they're becoming part of the machine, and watching a true pinball wizard is truly something to behold. And they are quite a rare breed today. Something that makes the pinball unique compared to an arcade cabinet is pinball couldn't really be ported to the home system in the way that Donkey Kong or Space Invaders was. So what happens to that home gamer in the late 80s and the 90s when you were stuck in grandma's basement and wanted to play pinball, but you were stuck with the NES? How could you capture the speed, the skill, the movement, and the thrill of the pinball machine at home? Well, I took a dive, and let's look at some of them. Now, there's High Speed, 1991. Now, this is long after the pinball craze of the 70s, but this game is actually by Williams, that big company that made all those other games with Bally. Now, you'd think that a company that makes these kind of pinball machines is going to be able to port it over to the NES pretty well. But this game kind of lacks the panache. Your eyes aren't darting around like a maniac. You don't have that feel, that bounce. You just don't become part of the machine. It's really boring and slow, and you're kind of stuck with the same game. It's the same machine. You want to be able to, feel some variety when you're playing. It just wasn't able to translate to the machine here. So let's look at something that came out a little while after on, another machine, the Sega Genesis. Now, this is Sega, at its best. This is Sonic Spinball, okay? Now, if you're looking for speed, you're looking for action, you want crazy bounces and boops, you're going to find that with Sonic, right? So this game should translate well into a spinball game. I was never really a Sonic guy, but I know he likes to roll up in a ball and bash around and collect things. That's what pinball's all about. I'm sure there was some inspiration for Sonic there that came from pinball. So I throw this game on and I give it a try, and it's a good game, but I have this problem with it. It's got too many different elements. I'm trying to get my Tommy on, and I'm too busy trying to get Sonic to jump out of this shark's mouth in the water, and this little mini game here, and try to hit this and stuff. I don't know. It's just not for me. I think I went into it expecting Elvira and the Party Monsters, and I just got another Sonic game. Now, I could go through and mention another slew of games spanning from the NES to the Game Boy, but they all kind of suffer from the same problems. They're too boring, they're too slow, they're too repetitive, or they're too full of other elements that just don't belong in pinball. So I suppose pinball is never really meant to be a home game. Just these dying relics that sit in bowling alleys or hobbyists like to collect. But I did find one pinball game for a really bizarre system, the TurboGrafx 16. That's that bizarre system that nobody ever owned, and it's not a surprise if you don't really know what this is. I didn't know anybody that ever owned this system. You either had the Sega Genesis, or you had something from Nintendo. You weren't going to go out and get the turbo graphics. So it's easily understood why this game slipped under the radar. But after playing a pile of mediocre pinball games for a variety of consoles, I found a game that was made by the devil himself. Complete with tight controls, intuitive feel, and sound. The game I'm talking about here is Devil's Crush. Now, this game has some of the most demonic stuff I've ever seen in any game. I mean, I'm comparing this to Doom. I mean, if you like cultists, pentagrams, imps, devils, redcaps, ghouls, and there's this warrior queen, center of the table, and you can just bash her around with pinballs, and she slowly turns into this kind of demonic vampire warrior. It's insane. I mean, it's like this game was made for me. I love all the crazy stuff that's going on, and that's not to mention that the mechanics are just outstanding. There's 3 tiers to it. You're bouncing around. It just feels good in the hand with a simple TurboGrafx controller. You just feel like you're part of a game. I mean, as close as you can get to those old pinball machines. Now, I do suck a little bit at these boss matches, and I do kind of find that they are that other element where they transfer you to another table. I feel like you get this quick bounce around and you might hit a few things, but there's no time to even really take a second before your ball is falling right back down to the old table. But it's no big deal because you have all those tiers to bounce around and lots of cool stuff to look at, and you just kind of always feel like you want to give it another try. Now, it also has a bit of a sister game, I'd call it, Alien Crush. Now, this game's pretty cool as well and is pretty much a clone, but it just doesn't have the same feel. But if you're into aliens as opposed to demonic stuff, maybe you're going to want Alien Crush as well. So if for some reason you find yourself with a TurboGrafx, pick up these 2 games if you're a pinball fan, because they definitely did the job at porting over that old pinball feel to a new system, and that's what I was essentially looking for here. I don't think that a lot of these old pinball games on the ports are, bad necessarily. I just think no one ever really quite got it right. But if you have a chance, give this a try. Make sure you bring enough quarters to cross the river Styx, and then you can give the devil his due.